right. Well, we will try to stay on time. I have several questions. When they asked me to be on this, I said, I'm not an expert in AI. Can I just ask the questions? And they said, sure, we understand. As an Aggie, I think I heard you say backstage you're a Longhorn, so I appreciate sharing the stage. Maybe we don't.
It's okay.
Yeah, that's right. No one's perfect, right? That's how it goes. But I wanted to start off, and really grateful for the panel here. We have some really bright minds kind of across the spectrum on this issue. And so I wanted to start probably with you, Madam Ambassador, going all the way to the end. The question is, what are the most effective ways for government, defense contractors, and tech companies to collaborate on AI development for national security while managing security concerns? And I think I know you all had a recent AI announcement, so I think it kind of ties into that. So I thought maybe I'd start with you on that.
Okay, hello everybody. You look great from here. It's such an honor to be with you guys, and for us it's very important to be in these panels. El Salvador is an early adopter of Bitcoin. President Nayib Bukele did it 4 years ago. In September it's going to be 4 years ago, our law, the Bitcoin law. And with the Bitcoin law gave us a lot of opportunities to show the world that we are so brave, and President Bukele has like a fresh vision for El Salvador. With the Bitcoin law, Bitcoin was legal tender in El Salvador. The private companies, they have to receive Bitcoin. So a lot of tech companies came to El Salvador. They stay, they open businesses. For example, Tether is a big company. It's building its own tower, 77 floors. So, it's been this 4 years, very excitement. With the Bitcoin law, we had to do the digital assets law to regulate, to give a framework, and also, of course, to give license to different companies. And it's been different, our relation with the Biden administration and the Trump administration. I have to mention it because with the Biden administration, practically they were trying to block, our own decisions and everything that matters with Bitcoin. For example, they had all our countries in Tier 2 with the Trump administration, we're Tier 1, so this is very important for us to bring more tech companies. Also, to layer this, we just recently passed the robotic law 2 weeks ago, and of course the AI law that is giving us the chance to compete in the region with the rest of the countries. And of course, we just announced that NVIDIA just sold us a very important amount of the B300 CPUs. And we have to call, let me tell you, Elon Musk to wait so they can bring us first. Because El Salvador is wanting to apply a lot of technology in the health system, education system, security, of course. And we are working really close with the United States, doing, some very important MOUs with DHS. They help us to build the cybersecurity office. And I think in matters of, you were asking me about security. Of course, the United States will always be the first partner for El Salvador.
That's great, thank you. And Mike, on the Lockheed side, as a defense contractor, I'm curious your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, within Lockheed Martin, we have an overall strategy we call 21st Century Security, and our tagline is, keeping our customers ahead of ready. And that it's a lot of different things, but main components are partnering with the best of industry, standing on the shoulders of giants to include, commercial industry, promoting interoperability among systems, those kinds of things, creating a shock resilient supply chain for the products that we build. But one of the best ways to have collaboration and make meaningful progress is to go do, right? So one of the things that we stood up about a month ago, my boss announced, is this concept we call it AI Fight Club. where Lockheed Martin hosts a high-fidelity simulation of a specific use case. And we bring in partners, and it could be large companies, small companies, academia, bring them together and have their AI on our system and partner it up with ours. And we have, let AI go against AI, and, steel sharpens steel, right? So that's how you get better, you adapt, you learn how to improve based upon this kind of competition. Our first competition in the next coming weeks, month or so, is a really cool one. It's air-to-air, air-to-air dogfighting combat, where we have, multiple F-16s going against other F-16s with AI pilots. And we're going to partner with other companies to learn from each other. So that's a beginning, step, but it can evolve into other, critically important national security programs like, Golden Dome and others. We hope to grow it into that. But I think, with how fast technology is moving, you just got to do it, right? And that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I love that. Although the first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club. So
I'm told I am not allowed to reference that movie through our trademark application and all that. So absolutely no connection.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
I think it's fair use.
All right, next question, and maybe you'll start with you, James. What are the biggest barriers to ensuring that AI systems used in national security are robust against adversarial attacks, right? And I think that's really important because as we look at the race, with China and especially on this, I just came from a thing at USDA where they're talking about adversarial purchase of farmland. But, I think in the tech space, it's as big a deal. And so I'm curious, maybe your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so first I just want to say it's a huge honor to be here, especially with Madam Ambassador. As a former member of the administration, I just want to thank you and your country for all your great partnership. It's been wonderful to watch, and I hope it can continue for the rest of the president's term and beyond. Yeah, I mean, like the adversarial stuff is a serious issue. And I think there's I should answer that on two levels. So first, I think the most important thing is to eliminate legal obstacles to building AI in this country. I mean, I think, the European model is basically you're not allowed to do it unless we've decided it's safe, and then we'll let you do it, which is why the European economy is what it is. And why they don't have, great companies in Europe anymore, and all the best founders in Europe move to the United States or El Salvador for that matter, and build things there. And I think we can't do that here, because if we do it here, then we're not going to have anything, and the Chinese are going to take over, and it's going to be quite bad. I think if we do that, then the security stuff kind of is the complement to that, because if people are able to make the major capital investments they need to make to build the sort of extraordinary things that are currently being built, they're going to have a strong incentive to put in robust security measures. I'm sure you could talk some more about that. Lockheed thinks about this stuff day and night, I'm sure, because the last thing they need is to invest billions and billions of dollars in building the most incredible tools in the world, only to have Chinese espionage steal those tools, replicate them, and then of course Chinese companies are not encumbered by anything. They're not encumbered by copyright law, IP protections, or any of that, and then sell it all over the world as a pirated thing, and basically they're going to crush us. So my sort of first order answer is the private sector is quite good at these things, and when you have large capital investments and you make it possible for those capital investments to appreciate in a significant way, they have a very strong incentive to do security extremely well, and in a way that I actually would suggest, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this too, not that I'm the moderator, in a way that I would suggest is even better than the government. I mean, the government is very good at security, but private companies are generally more nimble, more thoughtful, and more creative, and they're just going to want to do that if we clear the path to major development.
Yeah, I think.
Please. Much faster.
Yes.
Much faster, exactly.
Well, from the Lockheed perspective, I think that'd be very interesting.
Yeah, I think, when you look in the future when it's going to be AI against AI, I think the winners in these spaces are going to be the ones that are the most fluid and agile and adaptable, right? So creating environments in which, working with industry, with certain governance or whatnot, to be able to, test and build systems to be able to adapt. Like I have a executive that works on my team that it is his job to focus in on the safety, security, trustworthiness, of all the AI applications that we're building within Lockheed Martin and to support our customers. So I have a team that it is their focused job to do that. And one of the concepts that we have that's coming out of that is building an AI red team. Right? So just like in cyber, right, you have AI red teams to act as an adversary and test out vulnerabilities. So we want to do that, within Lockheed, and we're setting up various teams, these AI red teams, to go off and get to those issues and find the risk first before our adversaries do. So it's going to be really important.
I want to add something.
Yeah, please do.
You mentioned China. For example, the U.S. government Biden administration and also this administration is giving us the recommendation to the whole hemisphere, don't do deals with China, but you don't offer an alternative. For example, El Salvador is investing in 5G technology, and where are the US companies? For example, Ericsson, that you know is from Europe, are the ones that are probably going to do the deal with us. So I think it's not only to give us that recommendation, but to give us alternatives with US companies, also with the banks, for example, DFC, Exim, or private banking that can also give loans to the different countries to, to buy US technology. You are the number one in innovation. China is a perfect copycat, but you have to give alternatives. Mm-hmm. So the countries can decide, not only because, it's the most secure thing to do, but also because it's accessible.
Yeah, so I I totally agree with that. I mean, the United States, since the Monroe Doctrine, has prioritized the Western Hemisphere, and there's nothing I can think of that would be better for our national security than to encourage American companies that aren't doing things in the United States, if they're not going to do it here, to do it in the Western Hemisphere, in countries like El Salvador, where there's sort of geographic cohesion, and we can sort of build sort of a fortress Americas on our side of the ocean. I totally agree with you. And we should talk about DFC and Exim. That would be a great idea. I'm sure they'd be very excited to do more in El Salvador.
I love that idea, Fortress America.
Fortress Americas.
Yeah, Americas, that's
Big in
right.
South
That's
America,
right. Yeah, that's
too.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. All right. Well, next question, James. You're probably the most appropriate person to ask this for. Obviously, I know a little bit ago someone asked this question from the audience, but we've seen a lot of state versus federal when it comes to AI guardrails and regulation. In the One Big Beautiful Bill, there was at one point a moratorium on state AI regulation. Can you talk a little bit about the pros and cons of the various approaches, especially when it comes to national security?
Yeah, so I mean, so look, the little laboratories of democracy that Jefferson talked about with the states, I mean, it's a great point. Federalism is very important. The 10th Amendment's in the Bill of Rights, or in the Constitution rather, for a reason. And I totally support that as a general matter. But I think there are some industries and some technologies that are just kind of quintessentially national industries. So think about like airplanes or something. It wouldn't be the most workable system in the world if every airplane had to meet 50 different specs whenever it lands in San Francisco or Dallas or Nashville or whatever. And so I think AI is like that. I mean, when you're talking about multi-billion-dollar upfront capital investments for sort of long in the future payoffs, I think about it sort of like SpaceX, a company I've learned a little more about in the last 6 months. If you're going to invest hundreds of billions of dollars to build rockets, you probably need that to be regulated by one government at the national level, because you can't worry about the tail risk of, whatever, California, probably our worst offender usually, coming in 10 years down the road and blowing up your business model with some ridiculous legislation that they've decided to pass. Normally, I think conservatives are pretty cognizant of this risk, and so a great example recently was the Congress used the Congressional Review Act to blow up some Clean Air Act waivers that California had gotten to basically try to drive the entire auto industry down to zero emissions. It was controversial because of the parliamentarian, but our guys held strong, and they proceeded, and they CRA'd that thing. That was great. Why is that great? Because who on earth wants Gavin Newsom to be deciding how many whatever emissions rate your car should have? I certainly don't. I like electric cars, I like gas cars, and what I really don't like is having California decide what I'm allowed to buy. I think in AI you're going to have the same dynamic. So if Greg Abbott and the Texas legislature got to set the AI rules, would I be okay with that? Yes, probably. But until Texas invades California, which I think is not coming at least until JD's second term, that's not sustainable, because we still have to deal with California. And California, for better or worse, remains the largest economy and the largest state in the country. And so the stuff that they do, it's not easy to avoid. I mean, you have to, so you end up with a level down thing. So you asked about national security. It ties to national security, because if we allow the anchor of California to drag everybody down into the European style economy they're trying very hard to build in California, it's not going to be good for the country, because it's going to bring everybody down, and it's going to make it harder for us to keep up with our global competitors that don't have their own Californias, who are down there trying to make everything go slower and worse. So I thought they should have included that, but hopefully we'll get another bite at the apple.
Well, as a 10th Amendment person, maybe we can argue about that a little bit more later.
I love,
but-
look, if Texas were, if Governor Abbott were in charge, I'd be okay.
Yeah, if I lived in
But
California,
I
maybe
also
I'd
like
feel
President
differently.
Trump. so-
Yeah, that's right. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
Well, I think then kind of going to the next step, then what should we be looking at federally and U.S. should be looking at as we strengthen our AI-driven national security capabilities? So maybe, Mike, I'll start with you on that, but I'm kind of curious, what's the next thing that the U.S. needs to be doing?
Yeah, I think a bold move for the U.S. would be to take a leadership role, internationally to drive overall AI, standards and policy and kind of governance guidelines from an AI perspective, partnering with our allies and industry to build that out, take a real leadership role, not just on the early end, development and testing, but the deployment of AI. I think, doing that will allow us to better collaborate, internationally, inside the United States, promote interoperability and standards for interoperability and how these AI should operate across the board. And again, going back to my example or analogy of you got to be fluid, to be a winner in this space. So it'll enable that fluidity and ultimately make, the Western nations and our allies a safe place to live. So.
Absolutely. So, Madam Ambassador, I want to kind of ask that question to you, but then also, in collaboration with our Western allies, what would you like to see the U.S. do to strengthen our national security around this?
Okay, well, with the Trump administration, in the first weeks, with the visit of the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, we signed an MOU in civil nuclear plant. They're going to help us to build a plant, so of course we can compete and have data centers in El Salvador. We're looking ahead. I think probably I recommend the same for the rest of the countries. But sometimes the ideological things are the ones that are separating us from the United States. And for example, Bo Hines was in El Salvador. I was in that meeting with President Bukele, and we asked him to help us because the IMF has a double standard speech. For El Salvador to have a Bitcoin reserve is losing and downgrading in our ratings. For the United States, is the opposite. So, we need also the help of the United States trying with us to have a better reputation in El Salvador because, we've been very brave and we have done big steps for the technology industries, and we are very friendly. We have very friendly frameworks in El Salvador. And I think to partner with the United States right now is the best thing we can do. And of course, we're giving big steps, and we're the smallest country in the hemisphere, but we're giving and leading the example for the rest, and I think that's what is scaring everybody.
I love that. We appreciate the example that y'all are setting. So I wanted to end a little bit with this. I'm curious to get everyone's thoughts on this. A lot of times when I'm talking to folks who own AI companies, I usually put people in camps of somewhere between like the doomsayers that think AI are going to destroy us all, or maybe they're rationally optimistic about what AI can do, right? And I think when I look about how we can handle this on America First basis, how do we bring those folks together to ensure that, one, we provide national security interests and beat China in this race, but we also understand what the average American is looking at when it comes to how this will affect their jobs, how this will affect their families, things of that nature. So the point of my question is, what are the guardrails and how do we balance those guardrails that we need to put into place to ensure that we have proper innovation while understanding the concerns of the average citizen, the average American? And so, James, maybe I'll start with you.
Yeah, totally. So, I think it's a good thing, obviously, that the president has already committed us to global AI dominance as a nation, because I do think AI at least has the potential to completely transform the way we live and work. In terms of the concerns of regular people, look, we've had technological evolution for many years. Did the computer make the people who type dictation obsolete? No, right? I mean, like, the more the economy changes, the more things we develop, the more things we invent. You know, the guys that took care of the horses for the carriages do not take care of the horses anymore, but they find something else to do. And it's, you know, the reason the United States has been the most successful country the world's ever seen is because it is dynamic, and because we don't try to figure out how we're going to solve every downstream problem before we allow people to build transformative things the way I think the Europeans do. And so my general view is that we should allow people to create extraordinary things, and it's going to be okay. What we don't want to have happen is, like, for example, what has happened with nuclear power, where everybody got really concerned in the 70s that nuclear power was dangerous and we were going to have big meltdowns. And what, you know, lo and behold, we built 3 nuclear plants since 1975. It's a national disgrace. And China and France and even the French are building nuclear plants all over the place. So look, and in terms of like regular, you know, explaining this to the public, I think, you know, we just have to do a good job of not only talking about national security, but talking about how AI is going to be good for, you know, for normal folks, right? You want to go out for the weekend for some beers with your boys, there's going to be a self-driving AI car that's going to take you home. It's going to be fantastic. Like, there's a lot of things that are going to make your life better as a regular person, and it doesn't mean you're going to be unemployed, and everyone's going to be, I think, happier and more prosperous.
Yeah, Mike, I'd be curious
Yeah.
from the private sector perspective.
Yeah, I can tell a little bit about Lockheed's, you know, AI journey. About 5 years ago, when we really just saw that AI was going to be the next big thing and decided to invest, put a lot of time, money, and effort into it. At the time, there was maybe several hundred people across our company of 120,000 that were really AI people that were driving most of the AI innovation. Generative AI came out. So we built a custom, you know, set of tool offerings to build AI and added generative stack on top of it to get this out to the workforce, because there was a lot of hesitation. What is this? What's it good for? Everybody's talking about hallucinations and all those kinds of things. But how I learned, and I learned this from the CTO of Microsoft when ChatGPT came out, I said, you know, we got an early version of it. I said, show me how this works. Where's the user's guide? He said, there is none. Just start using it and then talk to me next week, right? And that's how we learned. So we built this secure environment to which then we, you know, drove into the workforce. Now we have over 60,000 Lockheed Martin employees leveraging our generative AI chatbot. We've got 13,000 engineers across the company building AI solutions from the ground up to support internal to the company, to our mission partners. We built a no-code generative AI assistant capability. 3 months ago, we have over 3,000 assistants that were driving AI innovation across the company. So we hit half the company, right? So now it's okay, that's great, right? And rah, you know, we're the leader in industry in this area. But now I'm like, what about the other 60,000 that I'm targeting there, right? And that goes into some of the other things that we have to, you know, approach of some of the cultural implications of, I get the question, is AI going to replace me? I said, no, you're not going to be replaced by AI, but you will be replaced by someone who uses AI, right? It's an enabler, and it's a superpower we're gifting to everybody across the company, and getting folks to understand that is key. And we've done a great job at that at Lockheed, but, you know, it's always a race to get everyone involved.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see how people use it working at a research organization, right? Like how it helps and can assist on research, right? But I have to tell our people, it's like, but you still have to write your own stuff, right? Like AI can't be the author for you, otherwise why do I need you, maybe, perhaps? It's really, I think, going to be fascinating how it's going to change the workforce and probably make us, you know, more efficient, more effective as we move forward. So, Madam Ambassador, I want to end with you kind of on that question. You know, when y'all are looking at this and looking at the regulatory environment in El Salvador, how did you balance, and how do you look at balancing kind of, you know, the need for innovation with kind of maybe some of the ethical concerns that people have on this?
Well, El Salvador has been building a good framework because we have listened to the experts, and we want to innovate, but we don't want to cut the wings of the companies. So, for example, for the tech companies that they want to like try and test new products, El Salvador has a very friendly framework that you can come, and for 10 years you can develop your product, and it has a very good incentive, zero tax. And I think this is good to partner with big companies, and of course with ethical, because we need to take care of our reputation too. But I think it's a good place that you can expand some ideas in El Salvador. So let's check El Salvador. I invite you to come, not only to do tourism. We have direct flights from DC, New York, Miami, Houston, LA. And you can do business in El Salvador. We're willing to partner with our first ally, the United States.
Amazing.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you all very much. Please help me thank our wonderful panel. And we finished 50 seconds earlier, so please enjoy your time. Thank you all.